shake my fist at this guy for his talk title because I don't talk about twin flames, but we are going to get there today. So I should probably give you a bit of introduction to myself for today's talk. My name is Darren Deojee. I teach on a number of different subjects, but for today the focus is on gender and relationships. I've been working with the Toltec gender tradition for about 25 years. I've been teaching for 15, and I'll be sharing with you some of the fruits of that experience, working with groups, women and men, couples, and I do rites of passage with men that I've been doing for the last maybe 4 or 5 years now. And we get an 80% return rate, but we don't tell anybody about what we do. It's a total mystery weekend. So you have to be willing to truly step into the unknown. But any men here who's interested, come and see me afterwards. So I've had to take a few notes for this to try and stitch in all the big up that Eli gave me there to try and make this work. So some of you might know me from things like somebody pulled me up at lunchtime for Straw Man or Nature of the Cage or something like that. I was in both those documentaries 10, 12 years ago because I used to be into a lot of the activism and law related stuff that some of you might have got into in recent years. And I got out of it because at the time it was really interesting that we were filling halls like this around the country, you know, Michael Bernicia and John Harris and myself and Simon Spaniard and people like that, and you know, we'd fill halls, way more people than this, whenever we were running something, and it really had a sense of a movement happening. Something was really taking place. But we had all these people who were ideologically aligned, they were kind of emotionally aligned, there was like a shared sense of purpose, but when it really came down to it, they didn't trust each other. And even though we were all talking about trusts at the time, Michael with his community trust and me with the people's public trust, when it came down to it, there wasn't any trust. So that was when I really went to focus on the gender work and really focus on working with men around why is it there's such distrust between men. And it had already been part of my journey as a man anyway, but I was keeping it out of activism at the time. But my journey into all of this started as a teenager. I was a very feminized boy with a lot of shame about being a man, a very wounded relationship with my father and with other men, a lot of distrust issues. And it was only, I was really growing up with this notion of being an oppressor class and feeling the shame for the deeds of other people, as I was programmed to do. And then it was in my teens I noticed that there were places that I couldn't go as a man unless I wore certain clothes. I couldn't get into certain offices, couldn't get into certain hotels, certain bars, unless I was wearing certain garments. And the same rules didn't apply to women. And I looked at them a bit more closely. Here's a chap. Now, can I just grab you for 1 second? What's this part here called? A collar. And what's this part here? The cuffs. So who wears a collar and cuffs? Yeah, other than this gentleman here, you know. And it's a lovely fine colour as well, very shine. Who wears a collar and cuffs? In our language, prisoners and slaves. You know, it's prisoners and slaves. And in our language, those words don't mean anything else. And we've been tricked by the context as far as I could see. And I saw men celebrating their fancy collars and cuffs and their nice shiny cufflinks. And I was like, all the world leaders aren't out unless they're collared and cuffed. How is this an oppressor class? And then, because I knew there was no secret club, but and then, you know, you can see that we go around the world, there's blue collar, white collar, dog collar in the church, all the police are known by their collar number. I'm not making it up. You know, it's been staring you in your face your whole life. You know, and that was where my journey began. I was about 16 when I clocked that. And the point is, if that surprised you and you haven't seen that, then some of the other things I'm going to share today and the other work that I do is really about stuff that's been staring you in your face your whole life. Just didn't know it was there. So the collar and cuffs was the beginning of this, and it took me on a big journey, trying lots of different alternative things. And I've really come to a new place in all of that, a new foundation in the work that I do, and I'll be weaving some of that in here today for the first time. So this is new, I've not done this talk before. So we have this, I'm working with a lot of doctors right now, I work with a whole bunch of different groups, and I found it interesting that we have this notion of people talking about an alternative system and alternative this, alternative that. And I realised I do a lot of work with language and its effect on our mind. It's like as soon as you call yourself alternative, you have made yourself the smaller second choice and you've given away the centre ground. You've given it away. And what I realised in all these years, and now I do a lot of work with natives, I consider myself a native, and one of the things that happened over the years was I was puzzling over this strange question of why is it Western people refer to Indigenous people without referring to themselves? Why do they refer to natives and not think of themselves? And so I've been working on this for many years now, and it was just when I was in Mexico recently, a friend of mine came up with the first answer that really made sense to me. And it was, she said, well, because we were just colonized so long ago, we've forgotten. We colonized so long ago. And what I realized was, in all of the efforts of the so-called awakening in the West, spiritual stuff, return to land stuff, sovereignty stuff, unseen forces, magic and spirit stuff, learning to move freely, dance a bit more freely than you might do in Western culture without a drink or something like that. And I realized that all this stuff wasn't alternative. I was saying to these doctors last year, I was saying, what you're doing is not alternative medicine, that's native medicine. You know, that's native medicine. You know, what you're doing, permaculture is not alternative gardening, it's native gardening. When you're learning to move in response to the unseen forces within you, that's not some spiritual removal, it's you coming alive as a human on the planet, as an earthling, coming awake to the truth of being a multidimensional being on the planet, which is, our true heritage is native earthlings. And obviously the mind got in the way of that. Now my tradition, the Toltec tradition, says that we have a problem in the West with our mind. And they say that we have a parasite that was a mind parasite. Some natives call it the wetico. You might have heard of it. But it's a major problem. And if you look at what a parasite does, is it keeps a host in a low state of well-being. It destroys the habitat the host is in. It doesn't want to kill the host. It just wants to keep it ticking over so it can feed on its resources. And I've realized in recent years that this really is what we call colonization. The colonization of the mind by these notions that cause us to believe that we're a visitor here. It tricks us into believing that the earth is dirty and something to be got rid of. You know, we talk about visiting nature. Where is nature? This is all part of that disembodied mind, disconnected mind. And then we wonder when we inhabit that place why we're not effective in the world. And it's because from a very young age, you were knocked out of your body. You were knocked into disembodiment so that you learned how to talk about stuff. So when you were young, say anger or other feelings when they showed up unskillfully, you were probably told to put them away and go away with them and come back when they weren't there anymore. Yeah, paraphrasing, generalizing, that about right? Me too. What that does is that tells a young child that feeling is not okay, unskillful feeling is not okay, and if you're feeling, don't bring it to the space, talk about it when it's not there anymore. Now the thing is, in my work what I've found is the only thing that gets another person to actually connect with you and really hear and feel your aspirations and the thing you want is if you can speak from and with feeling rather than about it. And so for many of you, if you've been parroting on to all your friends and family wondering, well, why aren't you getting this? And it's like, because they don't feel you. They don't feel you. You're just talking about your desire for change rather than embodying it, inhabiting it, becoming skillful with it. And what I realized many years ago with the People's Public Trust, we had like 1,000 volunteers turning up in courtrooms, police stations, all sort of stuff, seeking accountability in public servants. And what I found was, I couldn't contain people's anger. People were just too angry. There wasn't enough level heads in the game at the time. There's a lot better now, thankfully. But too many angry people. And really it was because they were just so burning with a desire for change, but they hadn't cultivated the skill with that level. And that's really the kind of stuff that I do in the one-to-one work I do with people, is about how can we come to skill and embodiment with the level of feeling that we have for change in the world. So that is very relevant to today's talk, because there's nowhere that feeling is more present than in our relationships, and nowhere do we get so little practice in being skillful with intense feeling than in relationships. So if you think about it, we all started off life the same. You were all a baby lying on the ground, kicking, pooing and peeing, no control. Anyone not? Okay, we're agreed, same starting ground. And so within about a year, you managed to make your body walk. Within about 2 years, you were able to make it talk. You were able to control your bladder, all the rest of it. And you did it by observation, because nobody shows you what you do with a leg muscle or a vocal cord. And if everyone lifts their hand up for me now, lift your hand up, and then put it down. Right, pause a moment. How did you do that? Well, how did you lift your hand? You just wanted to do it, didn't you? There's no how. You just do it. You're going to walk out here without knowing how you're moving your legs. It's not a trick question. It's about an invitation into mystery. It's an invitation into your mystery of that you don't know how you went from being a kicking baby to becoming skillful with that hand that used to claw your mum when you wanted to caress her. The thing for us is when our emotions are really burst forth at puberty, the same thing happens. Second body burst forth, second chakra. It behaves in exactly the same way as the physical body did, and it spasms with all its forces: arousal, self-consciousness, attraction, all these different things, and they flow without skill, flapping about the place. The mind, no different. The mental body flaps about the place until just through you observing it and saying, oh, just like you were with that baby with the hand, oh, this thing is slapping people, and oh, I've got control over that. Oh, this mind is slapping me and everybody else. Oh, I can get a handle on that. All these emotions, oh my goodness. So, but the point being is, from those moments of sensual awakening in puberty, you look at walking and talking. Everybody can do it pretty well. You look at skillful sensuality, skillful emotion. How many good examples did you get? Look how many times you get a child falls over and is supported to get back up. How many times with your sensual lack of skill were you supported in getting better? Or were you met with scorn and derision and shame? Which was my background. But the point being is, the point of this is to invite compassion for yourselves. To think, how long have you actually spent trying to become skillful with anger? Or with your sadness? Because that's the same. We think of lost temper as just anger, but it applies to all your feelings. Most of your feelings, other than reward feelings, are all the same. And they're all a desire for the world to be different. Anger, frustration, overwhelm, fear. I wish it was different. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish you weren't doing that. I wish you hadn't done that. They all just feel for it to be different. And you can lose your temper in all of them. If you're so miserable about the state of the world you can't get out of bed in the morning, you've lost your temper with your sadness. It's got you. But the same applies to our sensuality and sexuality. And that is, it moves without skill or awareness at first. And then you think, how long have you spent actually trying to become skillful instead of judgmental with those skills, or even expecting mastery from people who have spent scant hours in that kind of space, even minutes in some cases. And you look at how harshly you judge yourself and others for not being a ninja master with their sensuality or sexuality when there's been such little good demonstration, such little welcome into unskillfulness in the same way as we offer kids who can't walk or talk. And so that's what I do with men and young men, is a welcome into the world as unskillful people, because there's no way to mastery without fumbling. It's just not possible. And if we can't create compassionate, welcoming spaces for our own lack of skill and that of our partners and that of our children, and make room for strong feelings that are unskillful, then there's no chance to have the kind of quality of connection and love and relating that you might secretly hope for, because there's no way for that person to get to skill in any other way. And these days, boys are expected to be tantra masters from their first erection. Seriously. And then we wonder where they are. They're hiding. They're hiding with shame. They've been told that they are accountable and guilty for the deeds of others long dead and distant, and that is a crime against humanity that would not be allowed anywhere else, where a child is told to take up less space and be quiet because of something somebody long ago and dead did. Oh my goodness, what a crime. Can't tell you the amount of suffering as a result of that. Unjust suffering, unjust accusation, unjust silencing. And the fact that it continues to be a crime as far as I'm concerned. Then everyone's going, where are the men? Where are the men? Why would they show up for you? Why would they show up for you? You've scorned them, blamed them, derided them, expected everything. penance from people that have committed no crime, and then you want them to show up and save the day. Good luck with that. So I take men away from people who have judging eyes, expecting mastery, and create compassionate, welcoming spaces, and we have a great time. And these men are becoming strong in their skill, becoming skillful because they're welcomed. It's incredible work, but you can give that to yourself and to each other through this perspective of understanding that you've got no chance of seeking the change you want in the world or in your relationships unless you're willing to let your feeling move and speak with and from it. But with tender truth rather than hard bashing. Well, that's if you want connection to continue afterwards. So, I should probably get a bit more onto today's topic really, but this is foundational. Let me just see where I am. Okay. So I've been, oh goodness me, a bit of weaving to be done here. So, we are going to get to twin flames, I promise. We've got to go through a bit of the masculine first because Eli set me up for both of them in one talk. So, the Native Americans, that is, First Americans, they'll say that they have, that we in the West have 4 disconnections. We have the disconnection from Earth, disconnection from Spirit, disconnection from each other, and disconnection from the ancestors. And if you ask a native where their ancestors are, they'll say, they're in the rocks and the trees. And the Westerner goes, what are you on about? And in my journey over many years with this, I've come to know what they mean. And I want to many of you are aware of this notion of the ancestors alive or the ancestors coming in a way, and I want to share with you a little bit about that. But I also want to share with you a perspective on understanding a link to our ancestors in this country, because it's a very necessary healing that needs to take place, because we really do need to know where we came from. Not because it makes a difference where you came from, it's so that we know what is ours and what is not ours. That's really what it's about. It's like, what is a gift and what is truly your power? And understanding where you've come from and understanding the ancestors is really what helps bring that level of humility and finding your place in the sort of sea of humanity, rather than trying to, accidentally finding ourselves at the top in our own mind. And that happens as a result of these disconnections, really, disembodiment. So, in my journey with men, I've discovered, and not just with men, with women too, that when I would take them into mystery, into non-using Toltec methods of initiation, it would be, I noticed something in them that I came to call the bubbling pool of goodwill that is the spirit of man, and everybody had it. And it was amazing, and that began the real journey of ancestral healing for me in connection. And it was, if we ask what we got from our mothers, as Eli was saying earlier, where are the men? Well, we know where the women are, and we know what we got from our mothers. And the feminine really, carries all the codes of the form, in the egg. She's got all the historical knowledge of the race and the species is locked in our DNA, locked in the egg that the mother carries, that is then animated by the spark from the masculine. But all of that is held with her, and we all live with that now. It's great. But then people say, well, what do you get from the men? Where's the gift of the masculine? And this is a thing I've come to discover is it's really called I call it the seemingly invisible, seemingly absent masculine. And that is, where's Dad? Where is he? And it's because many of the things in the masculine are supposed to be kind of invisible. It's kind of etched in the story of the Immaculate Conception, which is an invisible, absent masculine. And actually that's capturing something about the essence of the masculine there. And that is something I discovered in my journey with my family, where I tried to be mum and dad to make up for my absent father. And I really discovered painfully that it is true, the sacrifice of the mother is that she can't get away from her kids. But the sacrifice of the father is that he can't be with them. Because true men's work is no place for children. The mine, the edge, the patrol, the discomfort, it's not a place for kids. And men are out there carving things out at the edge so that others have comfort. And to do that well, man can't do it on the doorstep. And I learned that through suffering, 10 years of suffering to come to that realization. And through this journey, this bubbling pool of goodwill, I realized that what's happened, what the men have done, is that they have codified their wisdom and their experience in something that we all use every day. And they've codified their experience in tools and methods and processes, because nothing has changed in 150,000 years. It takes as long now as it did then to start a fire from scratch without tools or method. It takes as long now as it did then to build a shelter from scratch without tools or method. And when we come into the world and appropriate the gifts that are around us, we just view them all as complete objects. So we look at the saw. You can go down to the hardware shop and spend a tenner on a saw. You know, oh, great, look at this saw. I'm going to go home and, yeah, I'm going to stick my shelf up and I'm going to do this and I'm such a man. Yeah. I don't need a man. Yeah. As if that power were ours. And really what we're looking at is not a designed object, but a refined object. Through people, usually men, sitting in adversity, without shelter, in the rain, the snow, and cold rocks, going, why is this not cutting? It's 3 days walk to the blacksmith, and then I've got to come back. Is it the teeth? Is it the taper? Is it the angle, the alloy, the handle? And here's the bit that I've noticed in every human being I've taken on a Rite. They come up with something that's, and I'm generalizing it, and it is, what can I do so that when I come back, or those who come after me, can stay longer, go deeper, go further? What can I do so that those who come after me can have it a bit easier? I'll change the taper, I'll adjust the teeth, I'll do whatever. So that when you go and spend your 10 quid on a saw, you've probably got the power of about 5,000 ancestors in your hand. Because you look at what that saw does. How many of you can alloy metal? How many of you could recreate that? How many of you could saw that bit of wood with your hand? Then you look at the drill. Anyone, 60 quid, go and bore. Hole in concrete. It's mind-boggling. How many ancestor power in that? Millions. Everything. So really and truly, we are wrapped in the gifts and the garments of our ancestors all the time. So you don't have to smell your own poo. You don't have to walk 10 miles for water. You don't have to feel the breeze or the sun if you don't want to. You just go and put on a garment with a weave that you don't recognize, you can't recreate. And then we're full of our own pomposity and arrogance and suffering, completely ignorant of the fact that we are wrapped in grandmothers and grandfathers all the time. And for many people, they've never left grandmother's and grandfather's cave, because that's what this is. Yeah. This is grandfather's cave, people. And if you've not been out of it, you've never been in the world. And they go from one cave, the grandfather's cave, into grandfather's cart, into granny's cave, into employer's cave, wearing the ancestors' gifts, using them to wage our war against each other, not realizing it's not your power, it's a gift, so that you can go further and deeper and longer than they could. And what they're really saying is, don't worry about that wind, I'll deal with that for you. Don't worry about that smelly poo, that's taken care of. Don't worry about walking 10 miles for water, dealt with, my child. Just come out of bed and have it. No matter how miserable you're feeling, turn on the tap and be refreshed. There's incredible generosity of spirit in there. And even for people who have personal masculine wounds as a result of an unskillful father or an unskillful partner, you can bypass that wound through this journey of gratitude, appreciation, and acknowledgement. And by doing it, people get amazing results, genuine ancestor awakening. And what I mean by ancestor awakening is that not that spirits appear around you, which they might, but it's more about the fact of their experiences in your DNA. And if you are to become a totally aware human being, fully embodied in your power, you need everything that's on that strand. And this is what the ancestral work is really about. It's about full activation of spirit in form by unlocking the codes of that which is at home on the earth, which is not the spirit, it is the earthling, the animal. And as long as we're disconnected from that, we're not going to be embodied power. And what happens is, as we gradually make our way through the human ancestor, we awaken the power and the connection of the animal ancestors, and then the elemental ancestors, and then you'll know what it means to have your ancestors in the rocks and the trees, because you'll feel it and you'll know it. But you have to build the bridge through the human ancestor first. So this is very relevant because one of the things going on in the world, that's not mine, I don't know what that is. Spiked by Clive's leftover tea, I think. That's all right, the beloved brother. So it's very relevant, this, because this is where it leads us to the point today, so about relationship, because the whole point of further, deeper, longer, and the kind of ushering forward of us and the issues and challenges that many of us are being presented with is because a lot of the work has been done. A lot of the physical, mental, emotional work has been done. And obviously the stuff that's left is the work that's undone, because everything else has been integrated. And so that's why things come up in intense waves. And a lot of the undone work left for us, and it's something that the ancestors couldn't work out because they were so immersed in survivalism and dealing with the wind and the tools that don't work and all the rest of it. And that was them peering back at the car crash of their family lives, going, what happened? I didn't want it to be that way. I don't understand. I meant so well. Car crashes, car crash after car crash of relationship and family. From well-meaning people, people who were in love. What happened? They don't know. But we are being presented with those energies because it is the undone work. And we have something they didn't have, and that is we don't have to worry about the existential issues that they've got, and we have a level of awareness and sensitivity that they didn't have. We've got a level of emotional intelligence and analysis that they didn't have to apply a mature awareness to the complexities of human relating. But if we're still flapping about, judging each other for minor indiscretions and taking it all preciously because we expect perfection, then car crash after car crash will continue. You know, it will, and you can't expect anything else. So, for about 10 years I've been saying that humanity is preparing for a space initiation. And COVID was really the graduation ceremony as far as I'm concerned, when everybody was given 6 foot around themselves. And what I mean by a space initiation is everyone familiar like the chakras? It just is a model, you don't have to believe it's just chakras, okay? So the system I work with says that the lower self, or the personality, is the lower 3 chakras, which is desire mind, sexuality, creativity, emotion, and then obviously the physical. And you can be a human that operates in that realm and be creative, be productive, and it's all good. But then you can make your way through to the second world set of the soul, of the human, which is the realm of the soul, which is the next 3 centers. And when people many years ago were appraising the soul as if a light from a distance, it was like, oh, it's this homogeneous light, it's just this one thing. But as we've got closer and as we've experienced it, we've discovered that it's more than that. So the first aspect of the soul that people encounter is this principle of love. And the principle of love seated in the heart. And love is primarily feminine, so what I mean by that is it's magnetic. So the tradition I work in, Totequity, views gender as electromagnetism in the human form, where the masculine is the electrical in us all. That's the charge and the discharge that's in us all. The feminine is the magnetic in us all. And this is where in our, we even have the perfect language for it in relating. We talk about attraction, repulsion, the spark, his capacity, her resistance, taking charge. They're all electrical terms, because that's actually what we're dealing with. And when you lose the spark and there's no more attraction, it's because you've lost the electromagnetic game. You know, and understanding gender is learning how to work that game to keep the polarity in it, to keep the spark alive. And without understanding how electromagnetism works, men, without understanding what it is to take charge and not take all the free options to discharge or suppress charge, that's the thing that makes you attractive. And women, you can't really be in your feminine if there's not a safe space out there for it, if there's no kind of safe banks to that river, so you can't expect yourself to be in it. And these little nuances really affect our judgment and expectations of ourselves and in our relationships. So what happened with the love awakening, though, is that Love is magnetic, and it's homogeneous. It's like the air element. There's only one air on the planet, and it just permeates everything. And when we awaken into the heart center, we think everything's like that. Yeah, love, let's all live together. We're all one. It's great. Way. Yeah, isn't it? I've lived in a few communities like that. I'll tell you what, it doesn't stay great for long. Because there's a number of things they haven't, a lot of things people don't understand about themselves. And one of them is space, which is, oh, love, we're all one. It's great. Can I stand here forever? For eternity. No, exactly. In fact, I picked on you twice now. It's not like your shirt. But that's because love is blind and it doesn't understand space, the need for healthy space. And if we look at electromagnetism in the cosmos and in our relationships, it actually mirrors it, and that is it's closeness and distance, tied in, tied out, penetration, withdrawal, close and distant. But if we're expecting close all the time, and then when natural distance kicks in, we're like, oh, there's something wrong. Somebody didn't love me anymore. She didn't like me anymore. All this sort of stuff. We start spinning off with all this nonsense because we're not in touch with the natural rhythms. We're not in touch with the natural rhythms that actually govern relating, and it's for health. Sex with all penetration, isn't that great? And sex with all withdrawal isn't sex. And that's what we kind of have these expectations in a relationship. You need both for it to work. It's like walking, you know, you can't just do it all on one leg. Left, right, left, right, left, right. And it's the same with our gender flows, and in our relationships, that's the way it's kind of meant to work. Well, that's the way it does work, but we expect it to be otherwise and then get upset because we're not in touch with how it naturally is within us. It's like everyone's aware of the female menstrual cycle, but most men aren't aware they've got a charge cycle. And neither do their women know that, apart from when he's hassling her like multiple times a day, like every now and again. But it's actually scientifically recognized. It's a solar cycle. That's the source of the spring surge in animals. It's also the source of the morning glory. And I haven't been able to get the image out of my mind of this sort of wave across the planet of the morning glories in response to the solar force moving across the planet. Once you've seen it, you'll never unsee it. So, charge cycle. So guys, but women know not to expect the same from themselves when they're on their cycle than when they're not. But men who don't know that about themselves, they have unfair expectations of themselves, not realizing their behavior will be modified when they're on their cycle. You know, just little details like that. The whole of culture, with the collared masculine, is set up to encourage the unskillful discharge of male energy. That's what the pornography is about, the football stadium. What do they call the atmosphere at the football stadium? Electric. Because that's what's happening. The men don't have another outlet, and they just go, and if they get the goal, then whoa! Oh, thank goodness. And if not, then she's getting a kick in, you know, because the charge wants to move. And if they're not venting there, then they're suppressing with drugs and alcohol. Their frustration, the fact that they cannot match the expectations of their expressions in the world, they've got nowhere to go. You know, difficult situation. So, I've still got some stitching to do here. Okay. Right. So one last point. Yeah, so the space initiation, that's right. So we're getting into space now. COVID really gave everybody their own space. Some have not been able to handle their own space. Some have done very well, which is great. And we're now in that stage where we really need to be able to bring some understanding and maturity to our relating if we're going to be able to do the work, because realistically, in a way, this journey of individuality is all well and great. But one thing I've noticed amongst individuals is that the very things that make you an individual are great, but then when you sort of graduate individuality, it's very difficult to learn how to work with others again. Anyone notice that? To truly work in a team. This is the puzzle we're in as a species right now, and that includes as a partner with your intimate other. And in a way, we haven't, so many aspects of the new world have already come online in people's awareness, but the one thing we haven't got yet is a new model of relating between man and women. We're still in a real mystery there, and it's still caught up in this mad gender war of blame and shame and all sorts of erroneous presumptions and kind of mad kind of misunderstandings about unskillful behavior. And it just kind of leaves us in this position where so many people can use the distractions of the world to avoid the discomfort of the relationships. It's very easy because there's so much noise out there, and working on what is in your relationships is actually the most difficult work because it hasn't been done at this level before. And it's much easier to go, oh yeah, Boris, no, Putin, no, COVID, blah, 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 blah. That's all well and good, but if it's a car crash at home, if home isn't filled with love and welcome and all that sort of stuff, what's happening? You know, where are the priorities here? Because in a way, if they decide to press the button and the big mushroom cloud in the distance, are you and your partner going to be able to look at each other with calm, easy love? Or is there going to be a panicked franticness because you've forgotten how to connect? Are you not feeling connected? Because really, you know, human spiritual awakening and all the rest of it, oneness, all that stuff, it's about connection. Not just standing next to each other, agreeing with each other, really feeling it, really feeling deeply connected. And this finally brings us on to the topic that Eli stuck in there, that I didn't even want in there, twin flames. All right. So twin flames, anyone here had a twin flame experience? Anyone? Yeah? Were you in a relationship at the time? Yes. Were you in another relationship at the time that they had a twin? If you don't know what a twin flame relationship is, don't worry about it. We'll get onto it in a second. Yeah, I'll elaborate in a second. The ones who know the term, is who it's for right now. I'm not that familiar with it. I don't use it either. So is that universal? Everyone was in a relationship? Yeah? No? Okay. So in most cases that I've come across, including my own, it was while a relationship was on. But it's really tricky, this, because we have this blindness in our feeling, in our nervous system, where when we're having a strong feeling, we make an edifice of it, and we make it forever. We make it a forever thing. And, you know, falling in love with somebody, a forever edifice is created. A twin flames overwhelm, a forever edifice gets created. And that's not really what they're about. That's just the first piece of the puzzle where it starts to go wrong. The other piece of the puzzle where it starts to go wrong is that people think that that is an indicator for a traditional relationship of some kind that may have a soul component in it. But as we'll get onto in a bit, it's not that either. Or that's part of it. But the level of intensity, so a twin flames experience is when somebody encounters somebody else where they're so sensually overwhelmed, possibly sexually as well, and there's a strong sense of deeply knowing that person even though they've never met them, but it is massively overwhelming. Is that right? Did you experience that? Hugely, as in, like in my case, I'd occupied my body for over 40 years, it belonged to me, and I'd never done this in anyone's presence before. And that was just before I'd met the person. And then when I met the person, it was even more intense. And it's kind of the kind of thing you have to experience because, you know, it's like talking about swimming to somebody who's never got in the water. But the point being is that my understanding now on reflection from having been through it and being a gender worker for a long time and also awareness of the transition that we're in, is that we're being given and offered the next level of human group, and we are misinterpreting what it is. People talk about the tribe. I don't like the word tribe. Tribe is backwards. I prefer the term constellation, because that's forwards. That's where we're going, celestial. And really, what I see happening in people's groups, in their personal power, is that the members of your tribe, your constellation, turn up at particular points in your life, and you'll recognize them. You don't need to know them. You'll know them. And you'll be like, I don't know why, but I really know you. Even though this doesn't know you, something knows you. And twin flames is a very strong version of that. And it is an activation of connection at a soul level that is so overwhelming to the lower senses that your sensuality hasn't experienced that level of activation before. And just through spasming sensual confusion, like I was talking about before, as this level comes online, people apply old models to it, thinking, oh, this is real love, this is it, this is the true deal. And then so much trauma ensues. Many people talk about traumatic experiences with their twin flames as a result of these old school overlays that they apply onto something that is actually an invitation into something else. And something that's within this is, so there's two aspects that affect this. One of them is about sensuality, and the other one, I forgot what the other one is now, I'll come back to that. And the other one is about attraction. So we have a confusion in our world because of not understanding gender and relationships and how the universe guides us properly. that we believe that all attraction is about sexuality. So if we're attracted to somebody, we think, oh, there might be something in this. And it's actually not. The Toltecs are very clear on it, and that is attraction is the universe saying to you, this person has something to teach you about yourself. And it might not be coitus. And what I've found in my experience from having made that mistake before and then not falling into the trap again, I've found out there's very rarely that. Very rarely. And actually found that attraction can actually chain you between people until you get to the person the universe wanted you to get to. And that is mind-boggling. There was a woman once at a festival years ago, such a strong attraction with her, and it was reciprocated. She was the same way we were like, and I'd fallen down that rabbit hole before, so I wasn't going to fall for it. I was like, well, so what is this attraction thing? Maybe, what do you do? What are you interested in? And we had a few shared interests, we tried them, and it's like, oh, that's not it. And we were both in relationships, so we weren't looking to pursue anything, we were just curious. And then she took me and invited me and introduced me to her partner. And he is now one of my closest, deepest, best friends. We have really interesting, similar waves that turn up in our lives. And from the minute I connected with him, there was zero attraction on her left. It was gone. Totally gone. And the reciprocity was gone too. Because I hadn't misread rapport, connection, mystery as sex, which I'd made that mistake in the past. So that is affecting attraction and how you read it. Or when you see your partner looking at somebody mysteriously, you go, oh, you see the way he's looking at her? Do you see the way she's looking at him? Now, when you're dealing with unskillful people who are loaded with lust and stuff, then that is a real risk. There's a real issue here, discerning between true attraction and lust. You know, there is, and that requires some sensual maturity and a bit of understanding. And that's why I think this level of knowledge and understanding couldn't come out until now, because we didn't really have the awareness. We didn't have the maturity or insight to be able to appraise it in this way, to be able to perceive that, yes, you can see that it's something that you can have attraction that isn't lust, and then you can see where, you know, lust exists, which is really, lust is more projection than attraction. You know, it really is. Lust is projection. Yeah, so with this twin flame situation, what we're actually doing is we're getting activated on a new level of sensuality, a new level of ability to connect. And we have to handle it with careful space and with care over how we spasm within it. You know, I use the term spasm for unskillful movement, you know. So if you any unskillful movement, oh, that was a bit of a spasm, wasn't it? But if you, I mean, because really, if you look at, so let's look at anger again just for a second. So anger, the most bullied emotion of all, but one of the most beautiful fuels for true change if you can harness it. But it's so bullied that everyone gets told to put it away when they're a kid. So by the time you get to somebody who's an adult, you've got some people who'll do their anger, they'll go and storm out. But then you get others who go, oh, remember that? Yeah, I'm not phoning you next week. You know, they make you a crap cup of tea or put less food on your plate or whatever it is. People drip feed their anger over days and weeks because they don't know how to say I'm angry because of this. And instead, everybody suffers for longer as a result of not making an effort with it. But here's the thing, all of those examples, the core feels the same, still anger. It's just anger. And it doesn't matter whether it's silent and stealthy or loud and violent, it's still anger. So the same applies. So what's happened with masculinity and stuff is people have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They've thought, oh, because I've seen unskillful expression, that means all of it's bad. I did that as a male. I know many men do that. They disidentify with male energy because they think, oh, if I let this move through me, I'm going to become this, that, or the other, the behavior that I have seen, rather than realizing, no, this is just a pure energy, and I can learn how to move it in different ways, which is the same for your emotions, your body, mind, all of it. All of them are tools you can bring under your skillful control. So yeah, the final point as to why we get this sexual confusion, which is okay because it's all right for there to be a sexual stage for that level of sensual activation. But one of the biggest issues is the product of sensual starvation on us. We're sensually starved from very young. So as an animal group, we're mammals, right? We're mammals, and the mammals that we're the closest to are all deeply sensual mammal groups. You know, the chimps are all picking fleas off each other and sleeping in huddles. You know, the lions sleep in a pile, all that sort of stuff, and nobody's getting poked in the back untowardly. Because they are sensually comfortable with their mammalian sensuality. But for us, we're isolated from a very young age, and then we're told contact, I'm not going to pick on anyone for this one, contact is either sex or violence. From 2 years old, stop hitting them, stop hitting her. Like, I'm not hitting her, I've just found this arm thing and it does this. Look, hey, stop hitting her, stop hitting him. You know, sex or violence. So it means that we are contact starved, sensually starved. The young men are so sensually starved that even the appearance of natural female curvature is enough to make them go haywire. That's not their fault. They've been starved of their natural calibration and ease as being a mammal in the world. And then what ends up happening is we then get overstimulated. Both men and women get overstimulated by connection energy and by sensuality because we're so not used to it. And so this again is where there's this real invitation for compassion for yourself and others when you're being faced with these waves of new feeling that you're just not used to. And so this, to me, is the sort of the puzzle around the twin flames thing, is because to me, I do see it as a graduation into a new type of mammal relating at a higher level, in the same way as you had a mix of monogamy and polyamory and togetherness and apartness and all the mammal groups. We see that emerging in the new celestial arrangement between humans, but that's between those groups. That's between you and your constellation, between you and your needs. I don't know what they are, but I know not to judge them, because of my own experiences, knowing, well, you know, if you look around, I mean, you can't see each other, but just have a look around just now and just see if there's anyone in here that looks like you. And is there anyone that dresses like you? I mean, that is individuality and uniqueness, people. So your story, your constellation, your tribe is as unique as that, and your particular angle of alignment with them and how often you come into amazing alignment and then fades away. You know, that's your constellation. It's like Andromeda and Betelgeuse love each other, but only if they hang out once every 40,000 years. Other than that, it's just like, you're too much. You are too much. Just go over there. 2 million light years. Great. See you in the next round. You have those rhythms in your life. But if you are misreading everything essentially stimulating as, they want sex. This is about sex. This is about a traditional relationship. Something like that. You're heading towards doom, suffering. But if you're willing to enter into the spirit of curiosity, what is this attraction? What is it about this person? What could it be? Where am I being stirred in ways that are unfamiliar to me? And just be in that newness, be the pioneer in new human relating, which is, because in a way to me, the time of the group, the individual initiations are over. So what I mean by initiation are the stages of enlightenment. So in the East they call them the Bodhisattva levels, and there's 9. In the Western esoteric traditions, they call them the initiations, and there's 9. And the individual initiations only take you so far. And after that, it's group. It's group initiation, being seen and felt and part of a slightly larger group. And the couple is the first group. And then most couples will be presented with an other, like a hydrogen atom getting another electron as that group moves into power, as they develop their own tribal power in the cosmos. But because we judge it wrong and they judge it wrong, we end up with car crashes. But the future doesn't have to be the same as that. We can make it different. But I've only got minutes now, and I don't know how to give you a conclusion in that time. So yeah, I just really want to invite everybody into that mystery of relating in a new way, to view the behaviours, the spasms, the unskillful spasms of your partners with a bit more kindness, and perhaps trust that their intent was good. Trust that they meant well, and they maybe didn't mean it to go like that. And maybe have a look at, rather than looking at the spasm, what gave rise to that? Was that actually tenderness and sadness that gave rise to that hard reaction? And if you can do that and stop reacting to the flapping about of the arms and the voices, you'll be able to transform your relationships, I guarantee it, transform them. And really enter into new levels of connection that match the levels of awareness that have been coming in recently, but you'll be able to get the sensuality that goes with that. start to come much more ease in your body, much more enjoyment being yourself and being in the world. And then you can go deal with the nussers out there. It's a much better starting ground. All right, so I'm going to wrap up now. My name is Darren Deojee. I've got a few websites, darrendeojee.com. I also have supplements as well, which are all my own recipes. You can see at the back about them. I also run workshops, retreats, do one-to-one, stuff like that. If anyone's interested, you can put your name on the mailing list. I promise I don't spam. I think I send about 1 email a year. But otherwise, I really want to thank you all for your time and attention.